It took a long time, right? But I eventually was able to let Jesus, the Son of God, go. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mav, and this is Mav Magic. Today we're going to talk a little bit about why it's so hard to leave religion, why it's so hard to let go of beliefs. I also have quite a number of notes to read from today, so, that's going to be happening. I'm going to be sharing just a lot of my perspectives and thoughts on the whole thing. Becoming an atheist was something that I never anticipated happening to me. I never ever thought that I would ever describe myself as an atheist, but here I am today. I want to talk a little bit about how this happened, and if you're on this journey, maybe a couple of tips to help you out. When I was a Christian, I had a ton of meaningful experiences, and one of the things that I recognized was really important to a lot of Christians was this idea that, God would reveal himself to you in particular ways. People had stories of, what it was like for, them to have a particular prayer that God answered, or maybe a vision or something like that. Having those things really gave people a sense of, real proof for the existence of God. And I remember longing for those things as a Christian. When I was in college, I had an experience where out on the dock under the stars in prayer, I remember hearing, what I at the time would have categorized as the voice of God, and how meaningful that was to me. But even still, I still had a lot of curiosity and desire for more. I always wanted more from God. I always wanted to be in a deeper connection with God. And it wasn't until after I deconstructed Christianity and moved into the more New Age spirituality sphere that I started to really have some other profound supernatural experiences. And it wasn't until after I moved into the New Age spirituality sphere that I started to have some pretty intense supernatural experiences. And those supernatural experiences pretty much became the glue to my supernatural belief. Because some of these experiences that I had were so intense, the emotional intensity really solidified my connection to these beliefs and made it even harder for these things to let go. Because when we're talking about development of beliefs, not just supernatural beliefs, even maybe beliefs about yourself, things like that, we oftentimes have those beliefs because of a lot of emotional evidence attached to those things. If we were called names a lot in childhood, sometimes it's really, really hard to let go of those things because there's a huge emotional connection to those things. So I pretty much proved the supernatural to myself. I had these experiences that communicated to me that, the supernatural is real. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. But I eventually ended up doing some research, and that research changed my mind. I finally had to admit that I didn't have sufficient evidence to confidently say that the supernatural is real, right? That there is any proof of a supernatural realm or any supernatural entities. This was really discouraging to me initially, but at the same time, it was exciting to find new evidence. And now, as a skeptical person, I still have a high level of respect for those experiences that I had, but I definitely have shifted my interpretation of those things. And now I find it really exciting to communicate with other people who have similar beliefs as me, and to talk about what it was like for them to leave supernatural belief and stuff like that. I also find myself talking to other people who used to believe like I did. And what I find is that they are not as excited to hear this information and tend to have a lot of resistance to adopting any of these new ideas, even if there is a substantial amount of evidence to support them. You guys know that I do a lot of TikTok debates, and I was talking to an individual who was kind of in the New Age sphere, and he literally said that it didn't matter what evidence that I had to show. None of them were going to disprove his experiences that he had. And he's right. No one is going to tell you that you didn't have the experience that you had, because you did. If somebody says, I meditated and I met with an alien and XYZ, in some senses, yeah, you did, right? in kind of a hallucination sense, you definitely had those experiences. But to then say that these alien beings actually exist somewhere in our universe is a whole other claim, right? That is not supported by any evidence. Like, imagine a world where people just base their beliefs and things like that off of their personal experiences and not off of solid evidence.
Actually, JK, this is the reality we're living in right now. So that's really great and fun when people, even make legislation based off of these beliefs. Great.
I also talked with someone who described herself as Christian adjacent. So she's someone who is deconstructing Christianity and is like pretty much out of it and doesn't really hold any supernatural beliefs really that much anymore, but is still connected to some of the ideas of Christianity. And she did talk about some of the fear that she had about completely letting go of some of those beliefs. And I know exactly how that feels. I remember how scared I was when I started to hear evidence that, maybe the Jesus of the Bible that existed, one who walked on water and healed people and rose from the dead, may not be a real person that existed. I wept. I cried so much. It was so devastating to me to come face to face with these ideas. And I remember after a lot of crying and a lot of just patiently kind of waiting for myself to feel secure enough to actually approach this evidence, I finally had to say to myself, like, Jesus might not be real, and I have to figure out how to be okay. And when I did that, it was so hard and so scary, but I needed to feel that sense of security in order to even attempt to adopt a new belief. It took a long time, right? But I eventually was able to consume the information and really understand that I needed to kind of let Jesus, the Son of God, go. I have two main takeaways or pieces of advice that I think would be really, really good for those of you who are deconstructing, and as well for those of you who are trying to help other people deconstruct. So for those of you who are deconstructing, my main piece of advice is to be incredibly patient with yourself. Remember how I was literally just saying how difficult it was for me to accept that, Jesus might not be real, and how much emotional turmoil that caused for me. It would not have been beneficial for me to just kind of bulldoze through my feelings and just try to kind of, force myself to change my opinion. Like, it was appropriate for me to wait as long as possible. Another thing that's really important, especially when you're leaving really high control religion, is to learn how to trust your inner guidance system, and be able to say, like, I know that my body will lead me to the right decision, whether that's remaining a Christian, whether that's deconstructing Christianity, or whether that is, leaving the faith altogether, maybe trying a different religion or becoming an atheist or an agnostic. When you trust yourself and you can finally really say, the decisions that I make, they're my decisions, right? If I make the wrong decision, that's okay. It's a part of life. That is a huge lesson to learn. So take your time. Don't rush yourself. Wait until you can create that sense of safety within yourself. Find supportive communities as well. That can also be super helpful. My second piece of advice is for those of you who are just like me and you're trying to spread this idea of scientific skepticism and really trying to challenge ideas and see if they hold up to scrutiny. What is really important is for you to do your best to create a safe environment for the individuals who you're having a discussion with. If you are immediately, making fun of the person or tearing them down and all of this stuff, it's going to be really hard for them to feel okay, to tell you how they're feeling or to tell you what they really believe. So get on that person's level, you know what I mean? Use their language if you can. It's okay to validate their emotions and their experiences without completely tearing them down. I like to say a lot of times, like, that experience sounds like it was very meaningful to you. And I can't, you know what I mean? I'm not going to tell you that was not what happened to you. But what I can say, is that there may be different ways to interpret that experience that you had. I think that is a good way to, I guess, like validate the person's experience and let that person know that you have some maybe questions or want to challenge something about their interpretation. I also think that it's really normal to get irritated at people sometimes, especially because there are people who can be like cruel and really unkind when they're talking to you if you disagree with them. So it's all right if you get a little bit spicy or heated sometimes. That's going to happen to everyone. But do the best that you can to create that environment of safety. I think that it'll help you learn, it'll help the other person learn, and anybody who's around to witness the conversation can also, hear two people who are having a calm conversation about these complicated topics. For me, my goal is never to make someone deconvert or like leave their religion. At the end of the day, I really want people to just challenge their beliefs, to learn a little bit more about epistemology, to learn a little bit more about critical thinking, and to at least engage with these religious ideas in the safest way possible. I am working a little bit on developing this idea of religious or spiritual harm reduction, ways to engage in spiritual practices and even religious practices and be able to maintain a sense of safety, to also maintain a groundedness in reality. I think that all of these things are possible, but we do need to find new ways to communicate these ideas to people. For example, people believe that evolution is completely, antithetical to any theism, and that's really silly. People can be theists and also accept evolution at the same time. And to teach that there is a great dichotomy between those two is unfortunate. So we want to try to bridge the gap here, make more connections, help spread more skepticism. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Make sure that you follow me on some of my other platforms. You know that I spend a lot of time doing TikTok debates and conversations there. And I am trying to just share some of my insights a little bit more often about, religion and spirituality, because those are some of my really, the things that mean a lot to me. So have a great day, guys. Peace and love. I'll see you next time.